morning, everybody. John Wilson here, commonly known around here in Queensland, Australia as Commo John. I'm an old trade union guy from Queensland who has led a very extraordinary life. I've lived an interesting life. In one part of my life, I used to be a very senior national trade union figure here in Australia, in Canberra, as the president of Trades Hall. And I also used to be a communist. I'm an old lefty. Not so much a political sort of lefty, person, but, a trade union lefty. And there's some significant differences in the old left politics here in Australia in recent years, and I'm going to go into some of this later on in my discussion out there. But look, I hope everyone's well. I've been asked, because I'm an old Commo lefty trade union guy, I've been asked by some people to do an upload and make comment on a referendum that's coming down the turnpike at us all here in Australia over an issue they call the Voice, okay? Now, I've been asked to make comment on this Voice referendum, because it's coming from the left. It's coming from the old commie sort of sources, the communist sources, and my insights into this might be of interest to you. I mean, I don't expect to get any sort of viewership on this. It just seems that old ex-communist, not many people want to listen to what we have to say. I mean, Comrade Yuri Brezhnev in the 80s done hours and hours of interviews about what the communist tactics were and how they were going to usurp sovereignty and demoralise the country, and he laid it all out, mate. He laid it all out, and no one took any notice. Comrade Jeff McDonald back in the 1980s here in Australia wrote a fantastic publication called Red Over Black, and he set out the communist sort of international tactics where they were going to use the Australian Aboriginals as a means to usurp Australia's sovereignty. Well, 50 years later, here we are. No one took any notice of, Comrade Jeff McDonald either, and yet here we are. And 9 years ago, when I sort of first went public on social media about what we are now seeing being rolled out, I've tried to explain the war that we were in, the nature of the threat, and the way I believed how the response should be shaped. Okay, and no one wants to listen to me either. So I accept that. And I get it. But I think what you need to understand is that old ex-commos, we really have insights that are worth listening to, because we see things that you don't, and we can explain things that you can't. So let me sort of go into this, if I may, my history, and I'll try and tell my history in a story. I mean, I've had lots of great old communists that were fantastic mentors of mine. I mean, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Australia was a guy called Laurie Ahrens, the longest serving General Secretary, was a fantastic guy, very honourable guy. The head of ASIO, who was the head of ASIO for well over 20 years, he retired at the end of that 20 years. He had Laurie Ahrens under surveillance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 20 years. And when the head of ASIO retired, he gave extensive interviews, and he said publicly, this is all out, Google all this, he gave extensive interviews, and he spelled out that Laurie Aarons, despite being the most senior communist here in Australia, never ever betrayed this country, never ever betrayed its sovereignty, and never ever acted dishonourably or in any criminal way whatsoever. And he had the highest respect for him, even though they're on different sides of the aisle, so to speak. He had the highest respect for him. There were others. I mean, Dr. Alan Finger. I mean, his granddaughter was a partner of mine. I mean, we lived together for a number of years, but Dr. Alan Finger, he was the very head of the Adelaide Infectious Diseases Hospital. I mean, his son was the one of the most senior scientists at the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories in Melbourne. And I can honestly say that without a shadow of a doubt, that if either of these men would still be alive and occupied these positions, if you would have thought that this coronavirus horseshit and this assault, this massive assault, that they would have stood by and A, let it happen, or B, cooperated with it, mate, I can tell you now, I can tell you now, it never would have got off the ground. Never would have got off the ground. And there's many others in the unions that I know personally, had they been alive and still been in these positions of power, never would any of this got off the ground. The modern communist, or the latter-day communist, and the modern lefties are a whole different breed. They bear no relationship to those people that mentored me and that I grew up with and was active in the community with. None whatsoever. I mean, there were others, Joe Owens and Jack Mundy from the Builders Labourers Federation, Clary O'Shea from the Victorian Tram Drivers, Peter Cundall from Gardening Australia. I mean, beautiful man, Peter Cundall, an ex-World War II, not digger, but British serviceman, and then came to Australia, migrated to Australia, and had great love for gardening and growing things. He was a lefty, a commo. You understand. The communists, mate, that I grew up with and mentored me, they were a mix of intellectually stimulating people who achieved big things, and they conducted themselves with honour and integrity. They totally opposed, I know this, they totally opposed the central banking fiat currency system owned by the central banking families. They totally opposed serfdom, landlords, big corporations, churches and the Vatican. They oppose Nazi power and authority, big corporate media, law enforcement and intelligence agency. They committed their entire lives opposing these types of forces. Whereas now we have this extraordinary situation with the modern left, where you have an outright alliance between the modern left and central banking. They are totally on board to central banking and all of the corruption and all of the trappings that it offers. The modern left have an alliance with the modern day Nazis. I mean, again, look at the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, look at the United Nations, NASA, look at where the Nazis have migrated and infiltrated many institutions all around the world, and the modern day left are now right in bed with them. So you have this an alliance between the modern left and law enforcement and intelligence agencies. I mean, here we are, ordinary Australians, out trying to protest and demonstrate against forced vaccinations, the loss of jobs, and not being able to see our loved ones who were in hospitals or in aged care and so on. And the police are out there just belting us into oblivion, putting dogs on us, hitting us with horses, rubber bullets, I mean, outrageous stuff, outrageous stuff. And a week later, what do we fucking have on the same streets? We have Antifa, we have Black Lives Matter, and we have all sorts of, anti-oil or anti-global warming fanatics locking the place down, and not a thing said. Not a thing is said or done by law enforcement. Okay, so the modern left is right in bed with law enforcement and the intelligence gathering agencies. You've got to understand, they're on social media calling for the police. If they see something on modern social media that they are able to get the police onto, they do. I mean, I've had much of my work uploaded on YouTube and Twitter and Telegram and Facebook, only to have modern left activists contact detectives, write letters to detectives, write letters to the Minister of Police, and so on. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, it's been reported all around Australia. I have. I mean, I was charged by one of the modern left, Fiona Patten, a member of the Victorian Parliament, who totally sold out the people of Melbourne and the people of Victoria to Big Pharma. Okay, but, she had the Queensland Police Commissioner have me charged and convicted. So at the age of 63, despite never having a parking ticket marked against my name, I'm now a criminal. And they wanted to jail me for 2 years. I mean, I'll tell you now, the modern left bears no relationship to those old commos that I grew up with and I was mentored with. It was they themselves, mate. I mean, Clary O'Shea, the secretary of the Tram Drivers Union in Melbourne, mate, was jailed because he refused to sell out and give up his union members, mate. They jailed him for months. Compare that sort of bravery, that sort of honour to the Australian trade union movement of today, where they betray their union members. There's been thousands of union members that have lost their jobs right across all industries. I mean, next Monday I'm going to the Speaker's Corner here in Brisbane to assist and to protest alongside of hundreds of Queensland nurses who were sacked before because they refused to take this poisonous jab. And the Queensland Nurses Association sold them out, dumped them, refused to represent them. This is a disgrace. There's no comparison. The old left, totally anti-war, pro-peace. The modern left, let's go and support Ukraine. Nazis in Ukraine. Let's support them. Let's send military equipment. Let's send hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars over. Let's send Australian diggers into action, right? So we have currently now Australian diggers assisting Ukrainian Nazis who they themselves are involved in clearly demonstrable war crimes. You understand? This is the modern left. They are bought out, they are owned by people like George Soros, the Open Societies Foundation, the Zionists. They are totally owned. They are a captured operation here in Australia. Now let me move on. That was my mentors, my colleagues and people I've worked with. You can see the clear difference between old left and where they are up now. You see Sharon Burrows, ex-president of the ACTU, whining and dining with Lynn Forrester de Rothschild from the Rothschild family, with Pope Francis and the Vatican. You understand? I mean, these people have totally betrayed their union members, they've totally betrayed their communities and the nation itself, these people. Now, I want to now go on to the Voice itself and talk about the Voice. I want to preface everything I say from here on in just with one preface, in that all of the plans that are in play by these people that I'm going to go through and speak about, okay, all of these plans are now going to be stillborn. You understand? They're not going to be able to deliver on. And the reason for that is that they can't conquer America. What is happening with the voice and our loss of sovereignty that's connected to the voice is not in isolation, ladies and gentlemen. It is something that is part of a global initiative, a global plan that has been long in the planning. This is a long game they've played with us, ladies and gentlemen, and this can't be seen in isolation. In order for them to totally pull this off, they needed America to fall, and America is not going to fall. President Donald Trump, we've now got evidence. We now have clear evidence. As per the American Constitution, there is a presidential role, a presidential position, but there is also a second position recognised by the American Constitution called the Commander-in-Chief. And Donald Trump, although he's not in the presidential position, Donald Trump is still the Commander-in-Chief in charge of all of America's military, and all of America's military are loyal to him and not Joe Biden and not the president. So Donald Trump still is a massive figure in all of this agenda that is being rolled out by Klaus Schwab, Agenda 2030, World Economic Forum, United Nations, and all of the big corporates and all of the Marxists and communists left on planet Earth. And Donald Trump has derailed them, and he stonewalled them, and he, as a consequence of this, their plans are not going to end up being able to be carried out. Okay, they're going to be stillborn. The purpose of the voice and who will benefit, I mean, what it's all about. Comrade Jeff McDonald set this out in red over black. It's to remove our national sovereignty and place it our sovereignty in the hands of the Rothschild central bankers. Okay, that's what it's all about. The Rothschild banking, the central bankers may have machinery, custodial machinery like the United Nations and like the World Health Organization and so on, but it will be Rothschild owned and controlled along with the other central bankers. So that's where our sovereignty is going to go, okay? Now all of the major productive areas, the wealthy areas of Australia are going to immediately then be, divvied up, and they're going to be bled dry. They're going to rape the country, and only the scraps of Australia are going to be left. And that's what they are going to want all of us here, all of us ordinary folk out there, to go into and to fight over the scraps. They're also going to get us to fight with our Australian Aboriginal brothers and sisters over these scraps. You understand? These 15-minute cities and all this other nonsense is going to be built in the leftovers of what they leave us, okay? Now, after they've done this, the next stage will be, because we are going to have 25, 26 million people in this country which are going to be furious, mate. When all of this finally shapes its way through and we get 15-minute cities and all this other stuff, mate, and mate, you're going to have a furious population. And the next stage is that these same forces behind the voice, they will encourage and incite all of the rest of the population to blame those beautiful Aboriginal souls who had nothing to do with this voice and this loss of sovereignty, and they themselves had voiced opposition to it. The white population will be incited to go out and kill these people, all while these fucking criminal central bankers will be feasting upon our misery, including third world misery that thousands and thousands of Australian Aboriginals are now living in. Now let's be clear, there is nothing in this which is going to be the biggest wealth transfer that this nation has ever seen for the Australian Aboriginal people. Nothing. Not one fucking cent, mate. There's not one T-bone steak. I'll tell you what, at best, the Australian Aboriginals will get a little bit of extra salt put in their corned beef. And if you want to know where that came from, go and look at the striking Aboriginal workers at the Wave Hill station in 1960s in the Northern Territory, Lord Vestey's Meats, who owned the station, and it was the Australian Communist that organised and helped those striking cattlemen who got paid nothing but tea, sugar and salt meat. And when they complained and wanted some extra, they put a little bit more salt in the salt beef. You understand? So there's nothing in this for the Australian Aborigine whatsoever. And I just want to tell you now the thinking. Let's have a look at the thinking behind these people that are pushing this voice. And I'm talking about, these Aboriginal thinking, the Marcia Langdons, the Noel Pearson, the Linda Burnleys, and there's others out there. But let's just talk about their thinking. Now you've got to understand, if you look at these people and you know their backgrounds and you know who's trained them, you know where they've done their articles of law, which law firm and all that sort of stuff, right? You got me? You will see that their thinking is a combination of Marxist, Zionist and Boule Society. You Google that yourself. The Boule Society, B-O-U-L-E, Boule Society thinking and planning. You understand? They hate this country. They hate this country and they despise the population of this country. You've got to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. The poison that spat at all of us ordinary folk is a combination of the communist lumpen proletariat notion and the Zionist Talmud training and worshipping. You understand? Now, you've got to understand the lumpen proletariat and the Communist Party manifesto. It talks about the revolutionaries. They are the proletariat. But the lumpen proletariat are all of those who are, society's castaways, the unemployed, the people who, won't fight back, despite knowing how bad things are, won't fight back. They were seen by the proletariat, by the communists, you understand, as the people that would backstab and betray the revolution. And you've got to understand that the proletariat, the communists, despised the lumpen proletariat more than they hated the bankers and the bourgeois. You understand? They saw them as absolute, filth because they were the betrayers of the revolution. You've got to understand that. Now the Talmud, the Zionists, the Talmud worshiping, we all know what's going on in amongst the Jews. Let's get this straight. We know there's a lot of people sitting in amongst the Jews and in Israel and here in Australia, which are not Jews. They're Khazarians. They're Khazarians and they are crooks, mate. They are criminal bastards. And then you've got others. You've got others that aren't Khazarians. They're not Jews or anything else. They are Zionists. But they all come together and worship. They worship satanic teachings, all contained in the Talmud. And that is what we are dealing with. Those people that are pushing, all of those Zionists and Jews, the Liebler and Bloch, law firm, and all of these other influences out there, they all despise us, right? Because we are goyim. We are goyim. We are cattle. We are useless eaters. You've got to understand. They despise our existence and they hate this country. No loyalty. Let's keep moving on. When someone tells you who they are first time, believe them. Believe them the first time. Maya Angelou. We are goyim and cattle. Don't forget that. And they intend to treat us that way. This race to get this voice referendum up by Albanese and all of these corporate blacks, you need to understand, is a race to secure positions of privilege and power. Okay, let's break that down a little bit so you understand that, right? Look, the Great Reset Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, United Nations, look at everything they're pumping out. Look at it all. It is now out in the open. There is now an expectation in amongst this coalition of forces, of betrayers, these infiltrators inside our nation and inside our communities, and also inside of the Truther movement and inside of the freedom movement. This coalition of evil forces, okay, there's a huge expectation that the Great Reset is a done deal. A done deal. Now they believe it's irretrievably in play and you cannot reverse it. That's what they believe. Now, I've prefaced everything I've said earlier about the evidence that I've seen. Evidence, not hearsay, not the evidence that Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief still of the American military, and they can't pull this off. Right? So I preface everything on that basis. But their plans were, okay, to upend everything that we have in this country, upend all of our community, totally, societally restructure everything in their image, right? That's the Great Reset. That's what this expectation is, and as a consequence of that, all the old positions, all of the old, perks and lurks and all that are going to go. They're all going to go because they're going to destroy all of our world as we currently know it. That's their plans. That's what they were going to do. But in the new Great Reset, a whole host of new opportunities were then going to open itself up, and that opportunities is what's on offer. I mean, Klaus Schwab and the Rothschild central bankers and so on. I mean, that's what's on offer. They are offering new, fresh perks and positions. And depending on where you sit as a useful idiot. Now, if you are an important, useful idiot, then, you can, no doubt, pick up quite a good new job offer from the Rothschild family and from the Rothschild house. But what you are seeing, this race to get the voice up, is to take away our sovereignty, then to deliver it into the central banking, custody, using their machinery, their custodial machinery, and then they are looking for new jobs. I mean, let's look at Anthony Albanese. Now, Anthony Albanese wants a new job. He wants to be the new national manager of the Australian Plantation Proprietary Limited. That's what he wants. That's his job. He wants that job. Because we're not going to have a prime minister. We're not going to have a democracy. We're not going to have any of that. You understand? So, Albanese wants to be the national plantation manager. We've got, Freemason, very, very senior Freemason law enforcement in this country who swear secret oaths and who've sold out their country and sworn allegiance to foreign powers. Well, they're looking for jobs in the new Agenda 2030, the Great Reset. They want to be gatekeepers. They want to be gatekeepers. They want to be like the prison gatekeepers. You've got others in the unions and senior Labor Party. They want to be foremen. They want to be foremen on the Australian Plantation Proprietary Limited. You've got, Sharon Burrows. She wines and dines with, former president of the ACTU. She's now in Brussels. She now wines and dines with Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, the Vatican, and all of the World Economic Forum, identities over there. So she's obviously been offered some big position of power and wealth. Okay. Now let's have a look at the likes of Noel Pearson, Marcia Langdon, and let's have a look at Linda Burling. Okay. Now they're looking for their positions. What they're looking for, they want nice cushy numbers as Rothschild house niggers. That's what they're looking for. They want cushy numbers that they can sit on the porch for the rest of their lives, super wealthy, lots of power, and do sweet fuck all. A nice little fucking Rothschild house nigger position. That's what they're looking for. I mean, Linda Burnley. I mean, look at her. Look at the way she dresses right now. She looks like a Rothschild house nigger with a Gucci handbag. I mean, I can't believe it. Talk about in your face. So, ladies and gentlemen, mate, there's a big push on, mate. The only way they can get their little house nigger jobs and their Gucci handbags and their foreman jobs and national plantation manager jobs, the only way they can do this is if they turn our nation, our country and our communities, if they turn it into an electronic plantation, and all of us, ladies and gentlemen, all of us into slaves. That's the only way they can do it. Thank you. I want to finish, ladies and gentlemen, with this upload. I think I've made my point clear in what's unfolding and why and who's behind it. But I want to finish it by just simply saying this, that, look, Australia, this fucking country's already been built off the backs of convict and slave labour. You got me? We've already been there and we've already done that. This country has also already been built off conflict and bloodshed between black and white. We've already been there and we've already done that. This is it, mate. No more. There's going to be no more convict or slave labour in this country. None. We're over it, mate. There's going to be no more conflict and bloodshed between black and white. We've had you bastards. We've had yous. Your time has come. All of yous are out. And I want to tell you this. What your claim, Noel Pearson, Marcia Langdon, and bloody Linda Burnley, and all of your black cohorts. And let me tell you this, what your claim is to this country. Your land claim. You don't have a claim in this country, mate, to one fucking acre. You don't have a claim in this country to one house block. You don't have a claim in this country of 1 square fucking inch. Nothing. Do you understand me? Zero. You've sworn allegiance. You've sworn an oath to a foreign power. You've sworn an allegiance. You have betrayed this nation. You've given up. You forsake any claims in this country. We owe you fucking nothing. And you're going to get nothing. And in fact, when we win this war and clean this shit up, we're going to come and take all of your wealth, mate, all of your ill-gotten gains. Yes, Noel, your 100 million. Yes, bloody Marcia, your 10 or 20, and Burnley and all the rest of you bastards. We're going to take your bloody ill-gotten gains off you. Because you know why? You're going to be fucking, you're going to have nothing and you're going to be fucking happy. Go and ask your fucking cunt mate, Klaus Schwab. Thank you. I want to make sure everyone out there knows, mate, that I love the Australian Aboriginals, and I want to point them. Google this if everyone. There was a lady by the name of Kath Walker, okay, from North Stradbroke Island, Queensland, Australia. The greatest state in the world, mate. The greatest state in the world. Kath Walker was an Aboriginal woman, and she used to be an old Commo. She was on our $10 note, you understand. She was on our $10 note. She was a grand lady. Now, look at her Aboriginal name. She's got an Aboriginal name where she later adopted late in life, but I've known her as Kath, and she wrote this poem, and Google this. Kath Walker, and it's called Son of Mine. Son of Mine. And it's about her son, Dennis Walker. Now, I went to Dennis's funeral at Dunwich in North Stradbroke Island 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. He was a revolutionary. He was never a communist, but he was a revolutionary. But his mum wrote this poem, Son of Mine. Read it, everyone. It's one of the most beautiful poems about how black and white should go together. There's only one pathway forward here, ladies and gentlemen, only one. We've all got to get on the one pathway, black and white, as well as all the migrants and everyone else, mate. We got to hold our sovereignty, and we got to get our country back. And there's one pathway, and the way to get there, we got to go through one gate. And that gateway is where Jesus Christ is, mate. He's the gatekeeper. We got to go through Jesus Christ to get to the promised land. But we've all together, all of us, black and white, together, to defeat our common enemy. Son of mine, Kath Walker, Google it. Thank you.